throat sounds. But a warm welcome, everyone. So let's just say hello in the chat, and we can share where we're coming from. Today's Women Together session is very special. I'm so glad to have our guest Hillary with us, and I look forward to sharing her bio with you, although some of you may remember Hillary, who has been with us for Women Together before. So it's just so wonderful to see everyone here at our weekly gathering. We've been gathering this way for 2 years now. We're deep in to our connection with each other. And before that, many of us had gathered in person, so or in this kind of hybrid way. So it looks like we're coming from all over again today. So we've got Boston, Winchester, Massachusetts, Canada, Ossining, New York, the coast of Maine, Ramlösa in Sweden, Delray Beach, Florida, Connecticut, Northern Germany, Lake Oswego, Oregon, Milwaukee. And that's just in the Zoom, and they keep coming in. Wonderful. So you can keep sharing where you're coming in from, and maybe we'll just do a little moment of stillness. We like to do some tiny practices just to allow ourselves to land here. And we can just get our feet on the ground or feel into wherever you may be physically. So perhaps you're on a chair or standing or on a cushion. Just feel a sense of connection to the ground or to the seat. Any of the touch points where your body touches something that's touching the earth. You can take a breath and close your eyes or lower your gaze. Just feel for a moment what it feels like to be in this body. Letting go of anything that may have come before this moment or anything that may be happening around you. Just feeling into the breath. Allowing the breath to deepen each time. We'll just continue to stay with the breath for a moment of stillness today. So just continue to follow the breath. And when you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the screen, back to our connection here. And if you're on Zoom, you can click into the top right corner where it says view and click onto the gallery. And if you're on YouTube, I just invite you to be present with yourself, to welcome yourself here. And for all of us here in Zoom, you can connect with each other, and just by taking a look at the screen and picking 4 boxes, just one little grouping of boxes, and send a little welcome to those 4 people. Just taking them in, taking in their presence and our presence here together. It's amazing how we can just feel each other through this through this screen, we can feel each of us sitting here being encircled together. And that really is the magic of what happens when we show up to this space. So you can type into the chat anything that brought you here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Hillary. And I'd love to read Hillary's bio because I just love how Hillary does what she does, even in her bio. So today's guest told her first story on stage 12 years ago. She cashed in all her change at her bank's coin counter for admission into the event, and then while leisurely walking to the venue, was splashed from head to toe by a bus. Her name was drawn first out of the bag, and she's been telling stories ever since. Hillary Rea is the founder of Tell Me a Story, a communication, consulting, and coaching business that trains multi-passionate entrepreneurs, mission-driven leaders, and committed change makers how to use the art of storytelling as a powerful communication tool. She's a spirited Philadelphian, lives with a Japanese cat, and produces and hosts a narrative storytelling podcast called Rashomon. Please welcome Hillary Rea. Thanks, Hillary, for being here. So glad to have you here with Women Together.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Antoinette. And it's so nice to see all of you, to meet some new people, to see some familiar names and faces as well. And I'm really grateful to be in the space always. I first came to this space at the early days of the pandemic, and what drew me was Women Together, but also this word connect, because so much of storytelling is the connection experienced between the person sharing the story and the person listening to the story. And you'll all get to experience that today in the tiny practice that I will share with you in a moment. The storytelling work that I do, I would say, is slightly different to what is out there and what is making noise in the world. Some of you, or all of you, might be familiar with the term hero's journey. When I was first confronted with that term, a story that follows a very specific templated arc, and it's a story that's kind of embedded in our Western culture without us even realizing it, but someone going on a journey, something sets them off. They're confronted with conflict and obstacles, sometimes internal, sometimes external. There's this big turning point moment, a climax, a change, a realization, and then at the end, the hero is the hero and is all powerful, all consuming. Now I'm making a very general sort of summary of what that's like. And I think when my whole life, and especially as someone who identifies as a woman, I was confronted with that story structure and secretly, quietly questioned, I don't think that that's how I tell stories, or that's how I want to tell stories, or how my experiences are shaped. What if there's another way? What if there's new structures to explore? And that so long as you have a beginning, middle, and end, there's other stories to tell that really support who we are, what we do, what we stand for, how we move about in the world. And so I really challenged that hero's journey form predominantly for the last 2 years, a little over or so. And where I am now, and how this connects to the tiny practice of storytelling that I want to take you all through today, is so long as you have a beginning, middle, and end, you can tell your story however you want to tell it. When I work with clients, we do a lot of deep work around this question, how did you get to where you are now? Which I know no matter where you are now in your life, people ask some form of that question, right? And by flipping the order of that question, where, and splitting it into two, so where are you now? How did you get there? By starting with where are you now, your story, you will surprise yourself with what story is cultivated, what you brainstorm, how you craft it, how you shape it. And I think that also connects to so much of what happens at these Women Together Connect events, of grounding ourselves, being present. Where am I now? Where am I now? And choosing an ending from there. And it's not an ending of where you hope to be or where you once were, but really establishing where you are now. Oh, the stories you can tell, and oh, the many ways that you can tell them. So that might feel like a big task at hand for me to share that with you. And we're not really going to focus so much on that how did you get to where you are now bigger story today. But I want to start an additional or an initial brainstorming activity exercise to do with all of you today. And I'm a very visual thinker. So I imagine I'm a visual thinker and I'm a hobby gardener. And by hobby gardener, I have some house plants. I have a window box that I have to take care of. And I have like a concrete backyard with a flower bed in my South Philadelphia home. But I still like to visualize gardening and plants and roots and seeds, etc. So, for the sake of what we're going to do today, imagine that we have soil that we have just laid down, fresh soil. We know where that soil is today, what it is today. And the tiny practice I want to take you through is planting the seeds for the stories that will grow out of that soil. Now, I did this tiny practice with anyone who may have attended back. I have the exact date. It was July 9th, 2020. And it's called the 5-Word Life Story. And I'll explain what it is and how we're all going to do it together in a moment. I found my 5-word life story from July 9th. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what my 5-word life story is today, almost 2 years later. The reason that it's important for me to see the difference or even to see the connections and similarities is that about a month ago, I led a 5-word life story workshop similar to this. And a client of mine was there. She was co-leading this event. She had done the 5-word life story in our client work together the year prior. And at the end of that session, she said, if I look at where I was a year ago, looked at that 5-word life story, and I look at where I am now, what 5 words I have now, wow, so much has changed. Wow, I understand myself so much better. All of that. So this is a tiny practice that you can repeat and you should repeat. And it's a story that's living and growing. And again, planting the seeds for all of the stories that you can tell. So I'm going to give you the instructions for the tiny practice. And then I will give you 5 minutes in silence to do the exercise. And when I say time is up, I'll just give you some next step instructions, and then we'll move into breakout rooms and you will have the opportunity to share these 5-word life stories when we get there. So I'm going to screen share a visual. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen. You don't need the exact visual. Can everyone see 5-word life story? Thumbs up if you can see it. Yes? Okay, great. You do not need this exact card to do this. You just need a pen and a piece of paper. But what I'm going to do in a moment is give you 5 minutes to choose 5 words that illustrate where you are in your life at this moment, up until this moment. And it is up to you, but I recommend shying away from descriptors and adjectives and really leaning into other types of words, places, people, things, action words. You can have fun with hyphens. You really can explore all the possible words that there are. Adjectives and descriptors are okay, but as you start to brainstorm the words you want to use and choose, identify for yourself, is this an adjective or descriptor that I am choosing, or is this something that someone has said about me? And go for the ones that you are choosing to share with other people. Because so often our stories get co-opted by the stories that other people tell about us, and also sometimes co-opted by our own inner narratives as well. So really pause and think, are these the words that I choose to share to other people that represent my 5-word life story today, May 3rd. So again, I will give you 5 minutes. I would say, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning when you have 1 minute left. I would say in the first 4 minutes of that 5 minutes, it's your time to brainstorm. Now, on the card, there's a creative space, but really this can be a blank piece of paper, and you can put, I've seen people like dump as many words that are coming to their mind in that period of time onto that paper, and then choose the 5 once they've put 30 words there. I've also seen people make timelines with dates or key life moments. I've seen illustrations. I know people that are very intuitive and meditative and sit there with the blank space, and then they know what 5 words will come once they've had some time to sit with themselves. So the world is your oyster in terms of how you want to brainstorm. But by the time I say you have a minute left, you should choose the 5 words. And again, 5 words that illustrate where you are in your life at this moment. And then wherever you're writing this, you don't necessarily have to put your name because it's going to be your piece of paper. But if you are someone that loses things, put your name on it. And then most importantly, put the date. So May 3rd, 2022. I will answer questions in the chat if anyone feels stuck in how to approach it, but the instructions are purposefully vague so that you interpret them the way you want to interpret them. And there's no wrong way to do this exercise. Just have 5 words. That's the only requirement there. So I'm going to go on mute. I'll keep time for all of us, and I'll tell you when you have a minute left. So you may begin. All right, you have about a minute left. So if you haven't committed to your 5 words for your 5 word life story, now's the time to do it. I also want to add, for the time being, refrain. So do not share them in the chat. You will have a chance to share, but for the time being, until further instructions, just have it with you, but don't share it in the chat just yet. So you have about 45 seconds. All right, so your 5 minutes is up. Hopefully, you have committed to your 5 words and you have your 5 word life story. What I would love to do now in a moment is you're going to go off into breakout rooms. And I know that that is a typically what happens in these weekly events. So for those that have been here before, you are probably familiar with now moving into breakout rooms. For those who this might be your first time and maybe hearing the word breakout room gives you a little bit of anxiety or fear, hesitation, give it a whirl. I promise you it will change your perspective on what a breakout room experience could be. And today, for this breakout room, what I would love for you to do is choose one person in your group to be the leader. And by leader, I mean you'll just have a little bit of extra admin work. So choose one person, and that person who's chosen as leader, you're going to go first. And all you're going to do is you're going to read your 5 words of your 5 word life story without context, without a preamble, without an epilogue. You're just going to say your name, read your 5 words, and then whoever's the leader of the group, you're going to call on the next person to go. The next person is going to read their 5 words. Again, no preamble, context, epilogue, apology, anything, and so on and so forth until everybody in the group has shared their 5 word life story, just the 5 words on their own. And then after that, you can talk about it. So you can take turns. What was it like to listen to the 5 word life stories of the other people in my group? What was it like to speak mine out loud, if that's something you are able to do? What was the process like of coming up? What were the connections between the 5 words? What are the stories that grow from them? And use that breakout time to cultivate a conversation that begins with that 5 word life story. Then when we come back, we'll have an opportunity for some of you to give voice to your 5 word life story out loud as a group. And then we can also share in the chat so that everyone can see everybody's, if that's something you want to share. So before we head off into breakout rooms, I'm going to model what you should do at the beginning of your breakout room time by reading the 5 word life story that I wrote today. So my 5 words are cultivating, rhythm, voice, reach, thrive. So if I was the leader, I would then call on the next person and the next person goes and so on. So Ella or Karen, whoever is handling breakout rooms, I would love if we move to that part now, and then we'll reconvene and talk about the experience after.
Thanks, Hillary. And for those of us on YouTube, we'll conclude this portion, but what I encourage you to do is to take a look at this 5 word story and reflect on it. Perhaps say it out loud, as Hillary just did, or I like to, do some mirror work. So you could go to a mirror in your house and read that 5 word story and see what it reflects back to you. So if you're on YouTube, thank you so much for joining. And on Zoom, we will do exactly what Hillary just said. So enjoy the time together. And really just practice the listening to each other, really hearing each other for these 5 word stories. And, not all the, we don't know all the history from before our lives or, what may happen as we go forward. But this current present moment, which I love that you brought that in, Hillary, thank you. So enjoy the time together. We'll see you back here. Hillary, how long do you want? 15 minutes? Maybe more, less?
Yeah, let's do 15 minutes and then that way we can have some group share time and next step. What do I do with this now time at the end for sure.
Perfect. All right, everyone, enjoy the time together. We'll see you back in 15 minutes.